Good afternoon, class. So we are moving to the next part of our syllabus. Now we have covered the first part, that is the central nervous system. Now we are moving to the next part of the syllabus, that is the ANS or autonomous nervous system. So which has two different parts. Again, one the adrenergic nervous system. Second one cholinergic nervous system. Okay. So last time we have classified or we have seen the classification of nervous system. So nervous system is a huge concept. So that nervous system or that part is classified into two parts. Okay, one is the nervous system. It is classified. One is the central nervous system. So what we have seen until now, the drugs acting on central nervous system is antipsychotic, antidepressant, sedative hypnotics, anti-Parkinson, anxiolytic. So all these parts they are related with the central nervous system. And the other classification of the nervous system is that it is classified into another part, that is the PNS. So that PNS is called as peripheral nervous system. Okay, so the central nervous system means the central part which includes the brain and the spinal cord. And other parts of the nervous system which comes under the peripheral nervous system. And this peripheral nervous system is again classified into two types. One is the motor nervous system, another one is the sensory nervous system. Okay, so peripheral nervous system, it is classified into the motor nervous system, and second one the sensory nervous system. So sensory means all the sensory organs or all this comes under the sensory nervous system. Now we have to look for the motor nervous system, or we have to look for the part of the motor nervous system. So this motor nervous system, which again includes into the two parts. One is the ANA, that is the autonomous nervous system, and second one is the somatic nervous system. Okay, so somatic means now suppose we have to go from one place to another place, so we go by the walk. So it is in our hand, it is the voluntary, that is we have to walk. If we don't have to walk, then we cannot walk. Okay, so it is depending upon our mind, or it depends upon us. We have to move the hands, we have to do the work, it is depends on us. So it is in our control, that is the voluntary movements. So such movements or such system which is present, it is called as the somatic nervous system. So it is there in our hand. So depending upon us, our control, our volunteer, we can perform or we can go for the movement. We have to write down the answer, we have to go, we have to play, we have to read. Okay, so all this is in our control. So which control is in our hand, that comes under the voluntary movements, that comes under the somatic nervous system. Okay, got the point. What is the somatic nervous system? Second one is the autonomous nervous system, or you can say atomic nervous system. So where there is no control on us. So for example, heartbeat, we don't have any control on this heartbeat. Digestion, we don't have the control in our digestion. Respiration, we don't have any control on the respiration. So all these on which we don't have any control, the involuntary movements, they comes under these ANS, that is the autonomous nervous system. So here we have our control, we have voluntary movement, this comes under the somatic, and here we don't have any control, this involuntary movement, they comes under the autonomous nervous system. Okay, so generally this autonomous nervous system, they are again classified into three types. So if you have studied, it is classified into two types actually: sympathetic, parasympathetic. Actually, another classification is also there, that is the enteric nervous system or enteric autonomous nervous system. But it is not required for us, so we are going for only two nervous systems. That is sympathetic nervous system. Second one is the parasympathetic nervous system. So what is the sympathetic nervous system? What is the parasympathetic nervous system? So sympathetic nervous system is generally called as fight or flight. Fight or flight. That is the active nervous system. And another one is meaning of fight or flight. Okay, so that is the active nervous system in our body. Okay, suppose तुमच्या मागे कुत्रा लागलेला आहे, एखादा पिसाळलेला कुत्रा लागलेला आहे, or you have some kind of threat, fear, something. At that time, what happens? This sympathetic nervous system gets activated. Okay, समजलं? एखादा थ्रेट असेल, कोण तुमच्या मागे लागलेला असेल, भीती असेल, so at that conditions this sympathetic nervous system gets activated, and what it does, it maintains or it makes our body to fight or flight against that threat. Okay, आता कुत्रा मागे लागल्यावर आपण पळतो, बरोबर आहे. It is the response to that one, to that threat. So this is due to the activation of the sympathetic nervous system. So how this sympathetic nervous system get activated? So when any threat or something like this is there, this sympathetic nervous system gets activated. This system gets activated means some neurotransmitters, they are secreted. Which neurotransmitters secreted? Epinephrine and norepinephrine. These neurotransmitters get secreted, and this neurotransmitter act on different sympathetic nervous system, or the effect are same. Okay, so when any threat is there, when there is activation of sympathetic nervous system is there, at that time what happens? Secretion of epinephrine and norepinephrine takes place. And when the secretion of epinephrine and norepinephrine takes place, what happens? In case of smooth muscle, their contraction takes place. In case of glands, their secretion takes place. In case of myocardial, the heart rate increases. So all these things you can observe. तुम्ही पळताय कुत्रा मागे लागल्यावर, पहिल्यावर काय होणार? तुमचे हार्ट रेट वाढणार, रिस्पिरेटरी रेट वाढणार. Okay, so why it increases? Due to the increase in the epinephrine, norepinephrine concentration, or neurotransmitter epinephrine and norepinephrine. Okay, so what happens at that time when this system is activated? Then norepinephrine, they are released into the tissue and they are reach to the target tissue. जे नॉरएपिनेफ्राइन असतं ते डायरेक्ट टार्गेट टिश्यूला जातं, आणि जे एपिनेफ्राइन आहे ते ब्लड सर्क्युलेशन मध्ये जातं. And when it enters into the blood circulation, as we know, after entering into the blood circulation, it reaches all the parts to the body, all the tissues which are present in our body where the circulation is there. So along with this targeted part, other parts also get activated. Hence some other effects are also you can found during that secretion of norepinephrine and epinephrine. So that is comes under the sympathetic nervous system. That is the fight or flight part. Alertness, so body alertness, the response to any stimuli, response to any fear, all these things we can get when this system gets activated. Second one is the parasympathetic nervous system. So this parasympathetic nervous system is generally called as rest and digest. निवांत बसा, तुमचं काय अन्न वगैरे असेल ते डायजेस्ट करा. That is the relaxing things. So parasympathetic is responsible for the relaxation. Okay, तुम्ही एखादं जेवण खाल्लेलं आहे, जेवण खाल्ल्यानंतर खुर्चीमध्ये बसून टीव्ही बघताय. At that time parasympathetic nervous system get activated, the digestion of that food takes place. Okay, but when any threat is there, at that time parasympathetic nervous system will not activate. What is activate? The activation of sympathetic nervous system takes place, and the heart rate increases, respiration increases, all these things which are associated with this system, it will get increase. At that time, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, they are having the opposite action to each other. So one is having the fight or flight mode, another one is having the relaxation mode, that is the digestion mode. So what happens, for example, तुम्ही जेवलेला आहात, ओके, जेवलेला आहात आणि रस्त्याने चालत आणि कुत्रं लागलं तर काय होणार? तुम्ही आधी अन्न पचवणार का आधी पळणार? काय करणार? कुत्र्यापासून तुम्ही बचाव करण्यासाठी आधी पळणार का तुम्ही बघणार थांबा आधी जेवण खाल्लेलं आहे, जेवण खाल्लेलं आधी पचवूया आणि मग पळूया, तोपर्यंत काय होणार? कुत्रं येऊन तुम्हाला चावणार, बरोबर आहे? सो what happens at that time? First you run, so that is the sympathetic nervous system. When the sympathetic nervous system takes place, at that time the rate of digestion decreases. जे डायजेशन होतं त्याचा रेट आहे तो डिक्रीज होतो, त्यामुळे डायजेशन कमी होतं. बट स्मूथ मसल कॉन्ट्रॅक्शन इन्क्रीजेस, ग्लँडचे जे हार्मोन सिक्रेशन असतात ते आहे ते त्याचा रेट वाढतो, हार्ट रेट आहे तो हार्ट रेट वाढतो. ओके, सो दॅट इज द डिफरन्स बिटवीन द sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So autonomous nervous system is classified into generally 3 types. For our syllabus point of view, it is classified only into 2 types: sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. In case of sympathetic nervous system, it is the fight or flight mode. When any external stimuli, fear is there, any such kind of things are there, it gets activated, it makes person alert, and according to that it increases the secretion of epinephrine and norepinephrine. When a person is in the rest position, in relaxing mode, at that time parasympathetic nervous system takes place, then it will increase the rate of digestion. Okay, it is clear what is the sympathetic nervous system and what is the parasympathetic nervous system. Now next part, what is the difference between the somatic nervous system and autonomous nervous system? Okay, how the impulses are transferred in somatic and how the impulses are transferred in the autonomous nervous system. So the brain spinal cord, from that impulses are transferred to effector. So if from brain or spinal cord directly the impulses are transferred to the effector cell, effector part, it comes under the somatic nervous system. It comes under the somatic nervous system. Now from brain it reaches to again okay, आता ह्या डायग्राम वरून तुम्हाला काय कळलं? This is effector. Okay, so if directly from brain it goes to the effector cell, it comes under the somatic nervous system. If from brain it goes to the effector with one addition nerve cell, this is comes under the autonomous nervous system. So this is called as presynaptic ganglia, this is called as postsynaptic ganglia. So with 2 ganglia, if the nerve impulses transfer, they come under the autonomous nervous system, and if only the single ganglion, if it is transferring to the effector cell, it called as somatic nerve cell, somatic nerve impulses. लक्षात आलं? तर सोमॅटिक नर्वस सेल्स मध्ये काय होतं, त्या इम्पल्सेस मध्ये थ्रू स्पायनल कॉर्ड the impulses are goes to the effector cell. So when आपण बघितलेलं आहे प्रीसिनॅप्टिक पोस्टसिनॅप्टिक, प्रीसिनॅप्टिक मधून न्यूरोट्रान्समीटर येतात, ते पोस्टसिनॅप्टिकला बाइंड होतात, त्यानंतरच ऍक्टिव्हिटी दाखवतात. सिमिलरली ह्या सिनॅप्टिक्स मधून बाहेर न्यूरोट्रान्समीटर पडतात, ते न्यूरोट्रान्समीटर जे पडलेले आहेत सिक्रेट झालेले आहेत ते कुठले असतात? acetylcholine, and this acetylcholine binds to the N1 receptor of skeletal muscles, and then they will perform their movement of skeletal muscles. So that counts as the somatic nervous system. हे सगळं कशामध्ये होतं? सोमॅटिक नर्वस सिस्टीम मध्ये होतं. सोमॅटिक म्हणजे आपल्या स्केलेटल जे मसल्स आहेत त्याची मुवमेंट होते. ही मुवमेंट का होते? So there is a secretion of acetylcholine. This acetylcholine binds to the N1 receptor. N1 receptor which is present on the skeletal muscle. So the movement of that skeletal muscle takes place. So it comes under the somatic nervous system. Now we will move to the sympathetic and parasympathetic. How the impulses transmission takes place. Okay, so these are the two different ways by which the transfer of nerve impulses takes place. Okay, हे जे प्री गॅंग्लियोनिक जर फायबर शॉर्ट असेल इट कम्स अंडर द सिम्पॅथेटिक, आणि ही जर लॉंग असेल इट कम्स अंडर द parasympathetic. Are you getting the point? If this presynaptic ganglia is having the short, it comes under the sympathetic, and if it is longer it comes under the parasympathetic nervous system. ओके, आणि ह्या सगळ्यांमध्ये फर्स्ट जे सिक्रेशन होतं, आता इथं सुद्धा गँग्लियॉन्स आहेत, इथं सुद्धा गँग्लियॉन्स आहेत, यांच्यामध्ये सिक्रेशन होतं प्रीसिनॅप्टिक मधून, आणि ते सिक्रेशन कुणाचं होतं? न्यूरोट्रान्समीटर. तो न्यूरोट्रान्समीटर कुठला असतो? ऍसिटाइलकोलिन. ऍसिटाइलकोलिन. सो सोमॅटिक मध्ये सुद्धा ऍसिटाइलकोलिन, पॅरासिम्पॅथेटिक मध्ये सुद्धा ऍसिटाइलकोलिन, सिम्पॅथेटिक मध्ये सुद्धा ऍसिटाइलकोलिन. ओके, सो दिस इज द फर्स्ट पार्ट. बट इन केस ऑफ इफेक्टर सेल, यामधून परत इम्पल्स जातात आणि इथं परत न्यूरोट्रान्समीटर सिक्रीट होतात, परत इथून न्यूरोट्रान्समीटर सिक्रीट होतात. नाउ ऍट दॅट केस जे इफेक्टर सेल जवळ जे न्यूरोट्रान्समीटर सिक्रीट होतात, इन केस ऑफ सिम्पॅथेटिक they are adrenaline and noradrenaline, or epinephrine or norepinephrine. आणि जे टार्गेट इफेक्टर सेल बशी जे पॅरासिम्पॅथेटिक चे नव इम्पल्सेस जातात आणि त्यावेळी जे न्यूरोट्रान्समीटर सिक्रेट होतात, दे आर अगेन ऍसिटाइलकोलिन. डिफरन्स काय आला? सोमॅटिक मध्ये एकच गँग्लिया असतो, फायनल इफेक्टर सेलला ऍसिटाइलकोलिन तुम्हाला सिक्रेट झालेलं दिसेल. इट विल बाइंड टू निकोटिनिक रिसेप्टर N1 which is responsible for the contraction of skeletal muscles. This is first part. Second part, in case of sympathetic there are two ganglions are present, presynaptic and postsynaptic. प्रीसिनॅप्टिक मध्ये ऍसिटाइलकोलिन सिक्रेट होतं, पोस्टसिनॅप्टिकला एफिनेफ्राइन सिक्रेट होतं किंवा ऍड्रेनालिन, नॉरऍड्रेनालिन. इन केस ऑफ पॅरासिम्पॅथेटिक प्रीसिनॅप्टिक मधून ऍसिटाइलकोलिन सिक्रेट होतं आणि पोस्टसिनॅप्टिक मधून सुद्धा ऍसिटाइलकोलिन सिक्रेट होतं. आता जे एपिनेफ्राइन सिक्रेट झालेलं आहे फ्रॉम sympathetic nervous system or from the sympathetic post ganglionic fiber, so they binds to the alpha receptor or the beta receptor and they will perform their activity, that is the adrenergic activity. In case of parasympathetic, at the end, at the effector cell, acetylcholine is secreted. They can bind to the muscarinic receptor or nicotinic receptor that comes under the cholinergic nervous system. So ANS and again classify into sympathetic, parasympathetic, that is the cholinergic and adrenergic nervous system. So sympathetic is the active mode, it is in the fight or flight mode, where after the first ganglia the secretion of acetylcholine, and at the second ganglia there is a secretion of epinephrine takes place. But in case of parasympathetic nervous system, at the both presynaptic as well as the postsynaptic ganglia there is a secretion of the neurotransmitter called as the muscarinic neurotransmitter takes place, that is the acetylcholine, which binds to the muscarinic or nicotinic receptor, they will perform their function. Okay, clear झालं तुमचं? What is nervous system? So nervous system is classified into two types: peripheral nervous system and central nervous system. Central nervous system मध्ये आता आपण बघितलेलं आहे जे ड्रग sedative, hypnotic, anti-Parkinson's, anxiolytic, antidepressant, antipsychotic, they come under the central nervous system part. Again, the peripheral nervous system, it is classified into two parts, that is the motor and sensory. त्यामधले motor again classified into two parts, it is the somatic and the autonomous nervous system. In case of somatic, there is a single ganglia which provides directly to the effector cell. It secretes the acetylcholine, it binds to the nicotinic 1 receptor. It will act on the skeletal muscle. In case of autonomous nervous system, there are again two types: parasympathetic and sympathetic. In case of sympathetic nervous system, what happens? It having the two ganglia. In the presynaptic ganglia, there is a secretion of acetylcholine, and after postsynaptic or the second ganglia, there is a secretion of adrenaline and noradrenaline takes place at the effector cell, where they bind to the alpha receptor and the beta receptor. In case of parasympathetic, at the both sides, as the presynaptic as the postsynaptic, there is a secretion of acetylcholine takes place. When acetylcholine is secreted at the effector side, what happens? It binds to either muscarinic receptor or either nicotinic receptor, and they will perform their activity. Okay, so this is about the nervous system. Now sympathetic nervous system generally activates three parts, or present in the three parts of the body. One, smooth muscles. Second one, glands, and third one, heart, myocardia. Okay, so here sympathetic nervous system is present, or the receptor for the adrenaline, noradrenaline is present where? Glands, second one heart, third one smooth muscles. So smooth muscles मध्ये कुठले कुठले आले? ब्लड वेसलचे मसल्स आले, बरोबर आहे. बाकीच्या बॉडी मधले जे बाकीचे जे ऑर्गन्स आहेत त्याचे मसल्स आले, दॅट इज द स्मूथ मसल्स. Glands, pituitary glands, hypothalamus, all these glands comes under this one. Myocardia is heart, cardiac cell. So they act on these three parts. Now we move to the next part of the syllabus, that is adrenergic nervous system. Okay, that is the sympathetic nervous system, or you can say adrenergic nervous system. Okay, so in case of adrenergic nervous system, there are two receptors. Which are these two receptors? Alpha receptor and beta receptor. So the drugs or the neurotransmitter, only neurotransmitter आहेत adrenaline, noradrenaline. So these drugs or these neurotransmitter, they binds to the alpha and beta receptor, and they will perform their activity. So drug कुठले कुठले आहेत? Adrenaline is there, noradrenaline, isoprenaline. So these are the some prototype of drug comes under the adrenergic nervous system. Okay, so these classify into receptor alpha and beta. Again, alpha into alpha 1 and alpha 2. Beta receptor, they are classified into beta 1, beta 2 and beta 3 receptor. This beta 1 receptor is generally present in the heart. The beta 2 receptor, they are generally present into the smooth muscles like blood vessels, bronchi, eye. Okay, so they are present beta 2 receptor. They are present in the smooth muscles, blood vessels, bronchi, eye, urinary tract, GI tract, where they are present. And beta 3 receptor, it is present in the adipose tissues. Okay, so beta 1, it is present in the heart or the cardiac cells. Beta 2, it is present in the smooth muscles, blood vessels, bronchi, eye, urinary tract, GI tract, where smooth muscles are present and there beta 2 receptor is present. And beta 3 receptor, it is present in the adipose tissues. Okay. Then alpha 1 receptor, they are generally responsible for the vasoconstriction, smooth muscle constriction and gland secretion. अल्फा 1 काय करतं, वेसलचं कॉन्स्ट्रिक्शन करतं, स्मूथ मसलचं कॉन्स्ट्रिक्शन करतं आणि ग्लँड पासून जे सिक्रेशन आहे ते वाढवायचं काम करतं. While the alpha 2 receptor, these two receptors, it is responsible to release or to decrease the insulin release. इन्सुलिनचं जे रिलीज आहे ते डिक्रीज करायचं काम कोण करतं, alpha 2 receptor. So alpha 1 receptor is responsible for the increasing the activity. Alpha 2 receptor is responsible to decrease the insulin release activity. It is also responsible for the vasoconstriction. So these are the activities you can find out. Okay. So alpha receptor, which is present in the blood vessels where vasoconstriction takes place. Alpha beta receptor, which is present in the blood vessels, they cause the vasodilation. So vasoconstriction by alpha receptor, vasodilation by beta receptor. So these also having some kind of different activities. Sympathetic, parasympathetic, they are having the opposite activity. So along with that, these also having the some kind of opposite activity regarding the alpha receptor and beta receptor. Then next part, adrenergic drugs. So what are the adrenergic drugs? So adrenergic drugs, they affect the receptor. Which receptor? The receptor where the binding of adrenergic neurotransmitter takes place, like epinephrine and norepinephrine, or you can say adrenaline and noradrenaline. So ज्या रिसेप्टरला ते बाइंड होतात त्या रिसेप्टरला adrenergic drugs bind होतात and they will block that receptor. They are called as also anti-adrenergic drug. Okay. So some adrenergic drug, they can act directly on adrenergic receptor and they are said to be the sympathomimetic. त्याला आपण sympathomimetic सुद्धा म्हणतो. आणि काही ड्रग्ज आहेत ते रिसेप्टर ब्लॉक करतात. ओके. आता ऍडिनर्जिक रिसेप्टर आहे. हे रिसेप्टर जे ड्रग ऍक्टिव्हेट करतात ते कुठले झाले, अगोनिस्ट. ऍडिनर्जिक अगोनिस्ट ड्रग, दे आर ऑल्सो कॉल्ड एज सिम्फॅटोमायमेटिक ड्रग. ह्या रिसेप्टरला जे ड्रग ब्लॉक करतात त्या ड्रगला आपण काय म्हणतो, अँटी ऍड्रिनर्जिक ड्रग, और दे आर ऑल्सो कॉल्ड एज sympatholytic drug. Okay. So here they have explained the other drugs, they will block the action of neurotransmitter at the receptor. That means they are the antagonists. So they called as the sympatholytic. So these are the list of adrenergic agonist or drugs under the adrenergic agents. So they are generally classified into three types. That is the directly acting, indirect acting, and direct and indirect. That is the mixed action. So these are the list of the drugs along with these are the drugs. So adrenaline, noradrenaline, isoproterenol. These are the drugs. So they having the category or direct acting having the category similar to this adenylyne noradrenaline like activity. So they bind directly to the alpha or beta receptor or they will facilitate the activity of the receptor. These are the agonists. They are not the antagonists. They are the agonists. They are having the similar kind of activity what the adenylyne noradrenaline show. They are indirect acting. That means not directly binding to the receptor, but due to the other way they are facilitating the activity of adrenaline and noradrenaline. They are the indirect acting. And third one, mixed action. That is ephedrine and pseudoephedrine. So they act by directly also. They are act by the indirectly also. But they act by the various mechanisms. So they comes under the mixed action adrenergic agonist. These are some adverse effect with these adrenergic drugs. Just go through it. Cardiac arrhythmia is there. Okay, because they activate the if adrenaline activated drugs are there, what happens? They will activate, as we have seen, the neurotransmitter. One secreted through epinephrine and norepinephrine. One goes to the norepinephrine. It goes to the effector, and epinephrine it goes to the blood circulation. It reaches to the different parts of the body. So require activity also you are going, but along with the required activity, you are also getting other activities which are not required. So this comes under the side effects part. कारण का adrenergic receptor काय फक्त एका पार्टला प्रेझेंट आहे. मोस्ट ऑफ द पार्ट दे कन्सिस्ट ऑफ adrenergic receptor. स्मूथ मसल्स असतील, आयज असतील, ब्लड वेसल्स मधले स्मूथ मसल्स असतील, जीआय ट्रॅक मधले असतील, युरिनरी ट्रॅक मधले असतील किंवा हार्ट मसल्स असतील. सो they having the adrenergic receptor. You are targeting only the smooth muscles, it is not possible. So along with that, they will also target the other parts which is not required. So they will produce the side effects. So they will cause cardiac arrhythmia, then headache, activity वाढते. Already we have seen it gives fight or flight part, so it will use the activity. Insomnia, झोप न लागणे, nausea, tremors. So such activity you can observe as a side effects with the adrenergic agents. Adrenergic neurons releases norepinephrine as the primary neurotransmitter. And here neurons कुठं find होतात? They are neurons, they are present in the central nervous system and also in the sympathetic nervous system, where they are serve as link between ganglia and effector organs. So already we have seen for sympathetic and parasympathetic there are two ganglions are required, presynaptic and postsynaptic. In case of somatic it is directly ganglia which provides the impulses to the effector cell. But in case of adrenergic there are two ganglia are present, the presynaptic and postsynaptic. The postsynaptic it provides secretion of adrenaline or noradrenaline which is at the effector cell. Here you can observe these are the directly acting. That means they can bind directly to the receptor. So these are the indirectly acting adrenergic drugs. So here we have seen directly acting means they can directly bind to the receptor. They will facilitate the activity. Indirectly means instead of binding to the receptor. So these are the indirectly. So instead of binding to the receptor, they will increase the concentration of adrenaline, noradrenaline, and that adrenaline, noradrenaline will bind to the receptor. And mixed action, they will activate both the ways. They can increases the concentration of adrenaline, noradrenaline, as well as they are responsible for directly binding to the receptor also. So they will show both the activities, that is the mixed activity, that is directly binding as well as the increase the concentration of neurotransmitter like adrenaline, noradrenaline. Where they bind to the receptor, they will perform their activity. Next part, important part, that is the synthesis and release of norepinephrine from the adrenergic neurons. आपण बघितलेला आहे CNS मध्ये सुद्धा synthesis of any neurotransmitter takes place, then that neurotransmitter undergo storage, then it enters into the synapses where they bind to the postsynaptic receptor. Metabolism takes place, some undergo reuptake, again they are stored in the vesicles. So that fate of the neurotransmitter takes place. So similarly in case of adrenergic nervous system also, like norepinephrine, there is a synthesis takes place. After synthesis there are storage, uptake, binding to the receptor, or metabolism takes place. So such conditions can be observed in case of norepinephrine also. So the first step, that is the synthesis of norepinephrine. So norepinephrine is synthesized by amino acid. That amino acid is called as tyrosine. So with the help of tyrosine, the hydroxylation of tyrosine takes place. When the hydroxylation of tyrosine takes place, the synthesis of norepinephrine, and this norepinephrine, when it is synthesized, it is released as a neurotransmitter in synaptic where they bind to the postsynaptic receptor, while some of the neurotransmitter again rapidly taken into the neuron, that is the reuptake takes place. Some of undergo metabolism, some which are taken again uptake ज्याचं झालेला आहे, they are again storage in the store vesicle. So such type of activities we can observe in case of noradrenaline, that is the norepinephrine. So that is the synthesis takes place by the hydroxylation of tyrosine. After synthesis, its uptake takes place. It is stored, metabolized, released, binding to the receptor. Again, which are present extra form in the synapses, they are again undergo reuptake part. So all this fate of neurotransmitter takes place. Similar like what we have seen in case of dopamine, okay, serotonin, norepinephrine. So similar kind of activity we can observe here in case of norepinephrine. So these are adrenoreceptors. They are classified into two types, alpha receptor and beta receptor. Alpha receptor again classified into two types, alpha 1 receptor, second one alpha 2 receptor. While beta receptor, they are classified into three types, that is the beta 1 receptor, beta 2 receptor, and the beta 3 receptor. So they are called as the adrenergic receptor. So the drug which binds to this receptor and facilitate the activity of adrenaline, noradrenaline, they are called as sympathomimetic drug, or they are called as the ergonis. Drug which bind to this receptor, they block the receptor, they are called as antagonists, or they are called as sympatholytic drugs. Okay. So in case of alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptor, so alpha receptor जे आहे, it shows weak response to the isoproterenol. So isoproterenol is the synthetic agonist, but they show better activity for the epinephrine and norepinephrine, which is the naturally present in our body, which is secreted as a neurotransmitter in our body. So for alpha receptor, epinephrine is more active than norepinephrine, and isoproterenol is less active against the alpha receptor. Again, the alpha receptor is divided into alpha 1 and alpha 2 based on affinities for the agonist and the blocking drug. Alpha receptor have higher affinity for phenylphyrine than the alpha 2 receptor. So these are some important part, that is alpha receptors. They are classified into two types depending upon their affinity. So phenylphyrine is the drug which having more affinity for the alpha 1 receptor as compared to the alpha 2 receptor. In case of natural neurotransmitter, they are more active against alpha receptor as compared to the synthetic drug, that is the isoproterenol. But in case of beta receptor, they are strongly characterized by the strong activity by the isoproterenol, which is the synthetic, as compared to the epinephrine and norepinephrine. Okay, so order of potency is opposite. Isoproterenol is more active as compared to the epinephrine as compared to norepinephrine. इथं काय आहे? Epinephrine is more active. Here isoproterenol is more active. It is more prone or more sensitivity towards the synthetic. Hence, in beta receptor they are classified into three types: beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, based on their affinity for the agonist and antagonist. So beta 1 have equal affinities for the both epinephrine as well as the norepinephrine. But beta 2 having the more affinity towards the epinephrine than the norepinephrine. So beta receptor epinephrine असेल किंवा norepinephrine असेल, similar kind of binding will be seen in case of beta 1 receptor. But if epinephrine and norepinephrine is there, then more affinity for the epinephrine for beta 2 receptor than the norepinephrine. Okay, so this is the overview for the adrenergic nervous system. So they are classified into two types: alpha and beta. Alpha again classified into alpha 1, alpha 2. Beta again classified into beta 1, beta 2, and beta 3. Drugs which show the agonist activity, they are called as sympatomimetic. Which will produce antagonist activity, they are called as the sympatolytics. And there are generally two naturally occurring neurotransmitter, epinephrine, norepinephrine. They show more activity in case of alpha receptor but less activity in case of beta receptor. But the synthetic isoproterenol is showing less activity as compared to the alpha receptor but shows more activity in the beta receptor. Okay, so this is about some introductory part for the adrenergic nervous system. So actual drug we will start from next lecture.